Jeremy from Jeremy.net. I am a comic book artist, writer, creator, self-publisher, and I share my creative process here with you online. If you enjoy these live streams, would like to get additional bonus live streams twice a month where we do deep dives into some of the best art books around, you can become a Patreon subscriber for as little as $2 a month. Head on over to patreon.com/Jeremy. It's patreon.com/GERIMI. In addition to the bonus live streams, you also get access to an online digital archive where you can read my comic books. And you also get access to a Patreon-exclusive Discord server where we share feedback, process, tips, shop talk, art tools, and more. If you would like a free digital sketchbook, you can sign up for my free monthly newsletter at newsletter.jeremy.net. You will also get work in progress animated gifts delivered right to your inbox. You'll get blog posts about what I'm reading, what I'm watching, what's inspiring me creatively. So head on over to newsletter.jeremy.net. That's GERIMI.net. And if you'd like to purchase physical copies of my comic books, or if you read digitally on Comixology or Kindle, go to amazon.jeremy.net. That'll forward you to my Amazon author page. You can pick up books like my first graphic novel, Eye of the Gods. It is a psychological thriller about a man cursed with visions he cannot control. You can also pick up my most recent project, Morning Star. It tells the story of Lucifer's fall from heaven as a Western. It's an 8-issue series. Volume 1 contains issues 1 through 4. Volume 2 contains the conclusion, issues 5 through 8. Both volumes have extensive back matter, script excerpts, thumbnails, page layouts, photo reference, and more. I basically show you how I put the entire comic book together. And if you go to the homepage of my YouTube channel, there are book flip-throughs of all these. You can see what's inside before you pick them up. All right, so on that note, a bit of housekeeping before we dive into drawing. You guys are going to have to do without me for the next 2 weeks because I'm taking some time off just to spend with family. So the next 2 weeks, there aren't going to be any public live streams. We're still going to do this week's art book study group session. However, I think I'm going to move that to Thursday instead of Wednesday just because it'll help make some scheduling stuff a little bit easier for me. Of course, as always, the replays will be available for all the Patreon subscribers. You can watch that whenever you want. And I will send out a reminder this week. So that's all about that. On that note, I wanted to do something a little bit different today. Something that I have not done in years. So I've been taking, I have a subscription to Schoolism. And right now, the great concept artist Iain McCaig has been doing these seminars where he's actually doing a course, but they're building the course during the webinars. Like each module of it, they're live streaming it so people can ask questions while he's demoing and teaching the lessons. And he had an exercise where it was not looking up at the clouds and drawing faces out of the clouds, but it was that similar intent. It was a project where he had a photo reference that had a lot of abstract detail in it, and he was like pulling faces and images out of that abstract detail. And I thought about the fact that I haven't just sat and stared at the clouds and drawn faces probably since high school. And I just thought, it's an interesting idea, interesting exercise. So I just grabbed a bunch of photos from Pixabay and just photos of clouds, and I was just going to look at them and draw faces and images, just try to pull them out of there and just let my imagination run free. So this one is just going to be drawing faces in the clouds. So not really sure where I'm going to start. I'm just kind of looking here and seeing what speaks to me. And the first thing I see is over on the far left. There's kind of a large duck-shaped face. Or maybe like a frog. Kind of reminds me of like maybe a weird Star Wars villain. Like the calamari people. Let's see. All right. What else do I see here? So there's a weird jellyfish looking thing just above that, right here. And I can see two different things. I can see sort of the jellyfish alien, or I could see it as a creature with a long, probing, like tentacle, or I guess it's a proboscis, the long needle-like thing that a mosquito has. Also, happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. Hope you are spending time with your loved ones, celebrating and being celebrated. I guess what really struck me about the exercise when I was watching Iain McCaig do it was just the idea of letting your imagination go and just running with these shapes and forms, seeing where it takes you, letting your subconscious drive a little bit. And I guess learning to see into forms. I don't even know what these little things flaking off are, but if anything, this feels to me like some sort of hard-shelled space vehicle that's kind of organic at the same time. See, Omar's in the chat. Hey, Omar, how's it going? How you doing? I am doing a little bit of an experiment here where I'm just playing with pulling abstract shapes out of clouds. And I started by saying that I was going to draw faces, but I mean, it could be faces, it could be creatures. In this case, I'm turning it into sort of a spaceship. But just, grabbing a bunch of photos of clouds and letting my imagination run wild with it. Something that I haven't really done in a long, long time. And I want to see what happens if I take that same shape and intentionally try to make a face out of it. So as a face, what I kind of see is almost like some sort of manta ray creature. And it's got sort of a pincher slash mosquito type needle nose, kind of a pincher slash beak, or a beak with pinchers, something like that. Maybe I'm going to have pinchers here, and then this last part is like some sort of weird pronged tongue. And that's so tiny you guys can't even see what I'm doing there. I'm trying to make like a tongue shape, but almost making it like an elaborate knife blade. And having that coming out of this larger form. It's a weird looking alien. I And there's just something kind of freeing about just letting your imagination go and not knowing exactly where it's going to take you. Like normally whenever I'm drawing, there's like I'm always thinking, how is this going to lead towards or build towards whatever I'm working on? But to a certain degree, giving that up, even just for a brief drawing session and just saying, you know what, just make some marks and see where it takes you. I think that it occasionally it helps to clear out the cobwebs, the mental cobwebs, how hyper focused we get on achieving whatever the next phase of a project is. And far be it from me to discount hyper focus, because that's normally my main thing and how I get stuff done. It's by being hyper focused. But sometimes you grip the steering wheel a little too tight. Sometimes I grip the steering wheel too tight. I'm not going to speak for you guys. Anyway, what's funny is now that I've gone in here and I've drawn this creature, I actually feel like this creature would make a better ship than the ship that I drew. I don't think I really got very many details in on that thing. I don't know. What else do I see here in these clouds? Let me move to a different area. When I look at these, I mean, it's hard to not see dragons in the clouds. Like I see one guy who's just kind of sort of staring with a super squished, long dragon head, blowing flames out into the clouds. Oh, here's a face. Here's a face right in here. This guy. Let's try that. It looks almost like a dinosaur. I mean, yeah, all of these things kind of look and feel very dragon-like to me. Got some eyes that are coming down. Then right in here, these little breaks, these little jagged breaks feel like teeth to me. See, right in here, these clouds. He's got sort of a large, prominent jaw. And I suppose I could be drawing this with a softer brush. But I think it's also interesting to be making forms that are intentionally distinct out of an indistinct image. I mean, now I'm just sort of playing with form here and trying to indicate changes in planes. So the top plane being the darkest. The light coming from below. Not just below, but really coming from his eyes and mouth. If I were doing this for like an illustration or a comic, this area that I'm doing the hatching, I would probably leave it white and then come in with a gray tone and color that instead of doing it with lines with hatching. But I'm treating this as if I were doing like a study with an ink brush. Let's see here. I see another comment from the chat. He says, so the fire breath will be the lighting source. Kind of. I am, because this is an experimental process, I'm also not necessarily coming into it with the, normally if I were doing a regular illustration, I would intentionally decide where do I want the lighting to be. But this is an experiment in finding shapes and faces and creatures in the abstract form of the clouds. So it's almost like I'm kind of discovering what the light source is as I'm going along. Yeah, but I do think that interpretation in terms of the fire breath being the light source, if I really look at how I'm imagining it, it's almost as if the dragon is in a dim room, and the same way that there's lightning in this image, and the head that I'm imagining is up above, it's almost like they're in a dim room and they're getting hit by a little bit of a glow from below, but at the same time, their mouth is glowing. So it's like that glow that I'm doing is just that little, like I saw that and I made a mouth out of it. I just chose to like, oh, that looks like a mouth to me. That's where I decided to put it. And my answers are not intentionally, but my answers are a lot more vague than I think the answers I normally give when I talk about my process, because at the start of this stream, I said that this was inspired by a schoolism webinar that I was watching with Iain McCaig. And he seems like he has absolutely no problem whatsoever just taking abstract shapes and building them into forms and volumes and giving them life. That's what challenged me to do this, is that I thought, I don't do that very often. It's very rare. I used to do that when I was younger. And I thought that it would just be fun to take on a challenge and see how it comes out, knowing full well that it is unlikely anything I produce will be even remotely in the realm of the work that Iain McCaig produces. But the point of the exercise is definitely not to compete with another artist or try to top their talent. It's to activate your imagination. So I just thought, let me go into this not worrying about whether these are good drawings or bad drawings. Let me just play. And so far, it's fun. It feels uncomfortable, and it's hard to say that doing something uncomfortable is fun, because for most people, uncomfortable is not fun. But there has to be a willingness to step outside of your comfort zone in order to grow as an artist. And I think being willing to try to find joy in that process of stepping outside your comfort zone goes a long way towards helping your artistic growth. Now, that's something that I think is a deeply personal statement. I can't say that that's true for everyone else. For other people, it might be like, no, every time I step out of my comfort zone, it cripples me. And there's definitely times when I'm outside of my comfort zone and it just does not feel good and the results aren't good. And I question myself and I think, should I have done this? Should I have shared this with the world? Should I even be doing this? But you know what? Self-doubt is a part of the creative process. You can't just assume, like, in order to get better, you have to be self-critical. In order to be self-critical, you have to look at a piece and say, well, why is this working? Why is this not working? Now, I don't know if that's necessarily true in an exercise like this, where the point is not to draw well, but to activate the imagination. In fact, I think the hardest part in doing an exercise like this is turning off your inner critic. Turning off the part of your brain that says, do this, not that. Or at least being able to use it just enough to shape things. To look at something and say, oh, I can see where this is an interesting form. I can see where this is useful as a piece of visual expression, moving things around. Using it as a guide, but not as a handcuff. All right. I think I'm ready to move on and look at another shape. In fact, I think I'm ready to move on to a different photo, only because, you know, we're already 30 minutes in, and I've done several drawings from this one photo. Let's turn this off and let's grab a new photo. Just change it up. Let's see here. Photo. Let's take this. All right. Well, given how horizontal widescreen this image is, I think that instead of drawing side by side, I'm going to draw below this photo. So let's see, what do I see here looking at this? I see a giant turtle face. Right in here. Giant turtle. It's almost like it's wearing a helmet, some sort of armor. Let's see here. Look at that. Byron in the chat. Hey, man, how you doing? Good to see you. It says, hey, people. Hey, Byron. So I am drawing abstract forms out of clouds. Just a little exercise, an imagination exercise. It was inspired by a demo that I saw Iain McCaig do on a schoolism webinar. Let's see here. He says, hello. Now, see, what's odd is this is the kind of sketch where I wouldn't go and do very, very long, detailed drawings. And this exercise is supposed to be sort of fun and loose and light, but I'm looking at all of these the clouds that are on the surface of this thing that I'm choosing to make sort of the beak or nose. It's like there's so much detail there. It feels like it's sort of like rocky, like a beak that spent a long time in the ocean and has all these little crags and bumps and barnacles. And also it's becoming a little bit too profile-y, because from the angle I'm seeing it, I'm imagining it as something that's more of a 3/4 view. It's this massive creature looking down on us. The thing about all these little bumps is I'm coming in here and I'm scribbling to indicate them. And this is something that I've spent many, many years trying to beat that habit out of myself, scribbling to stand in for detail. Because for many years, I would do that without actually knowing how to draw the details. And at a certain point, I said I have to stop and really either learn how to draw things detailed, or if I can't really draw what's there, then I have to draw the simple version. But I felt like I was cheating, and that's a word that I use with reservations. I don't believe that there's really cheating in art. But I felt like scribbling to stand in for detail was me just hiding the fact that I didn't know how to draw a lot of the things that I was drawing. Now, in this one, it's an exercise. It's not a finished illustration, so it doesn't really matter. But two, I think I've spent enough time getting better at drawing details that now when I scribble stuff in there, I've got a sense of what it is that it's standing in for. And I've got a little bit better sense of how to imply detail that feels like it actually is something, as opposed to me just making marks to hide that I don't know how to draw something. And that makes me feel okay about scribbling. And these are my own personal hangups. It's not like I'm telling other people, oh, hey, you're not allowed to scribble to indicate detail. It's that I knew personally for me when I was doing it that I was not drawing something that I really understood. And I was trying to get away with something, trying to make it feel like I knew something I didn't. That's why I personally had a problem with it. If you know what you're doing, scribble away. I'm going to come in here with the eraser and just put a little dot of an eye staring out of the darkness there, out of the depths of that cloud. And it's interesting that even though it's a cloud, you can still see there's this edge where the form turns away from the light. Like right here, you can see this corner of the underside of the mouth is in light. Then it turns away. And you've got shadow forms. You know, I also wonder why it is that I am just seeing creatures. I'm wondering if somewhere in here, if I look for it, there's a humanoid face. Maybe something softer and gentler. A female figure, a young child. Let's see here. Byron says, I see a fist on the right. Let's see here. Oh, I see it too. Like it's someone just coming up out of the clouds, raising a fist. Huh. Let's see here. You know what's crazy? I see the fist. I also see ET. Now, this is probably because I don't know how big this is on your screen or the screen you're watching it on, but if I look at it here like this, it looks like E.T. His long, stringy neck. Elliot. I haven't watched E.T. in ages. Anyway, I see the fist. I see E.T. Now I do actually see a face. Well, I think there's something about clouds that lends itself to profiles. Right in here, I see someone kind of wearing a helmet. Little face right there. Now, that's not as prominent as some of the other forms that are in the cloud, but I don't know. For some reason, that's the one I look at and I'm like, huh, let me draw this, see where it takes me. Some high, broad cheekbones. Actually, you know what? Looking at it now, it looks like a teenage solid snake. That's actually what I'm seeing now is teen snake. It's like a profile, but just slightly turning away. So I'm curious for you guys. Do you guys have any exercises that you do or things that you try to, in order to stimulate your imagination? We're working from something abstract or unconscious. You let your mind's eye see things that you aren't necessarily planning. You just kind of open up and see what's there. I will tell you that looking at this does look like one of those where coming in with some low opacity forms might do a better service than coming in with the hard edge ink shapes that I was doing. Move over to a different spot. Ah, right in here, I see like a little imp peeking over a ridge. Let's see. See Aaron in the chat. Says hi. Hi, Aaron. How you doing? I'm just doing a little drawing exercise here, pulling some imaginative shapes and forms out of the clouds. Let's see. I'm going to take these drawings and move these over to the side a little bit so we can get up underneath and draw this little guy here. Let's see here. So Byron says, for me, I'll take my ink brush and just make random lines and shapes until I start making forms. I'll take markers and make color splotches, outlining them with a pen later. You know, it's funny. I was just looking through a mixed media sketch pad that I hadn't drawn in a while. And I came across a bunch of, not a bunch, but like 2 or 3 watercolor blobs that I had just drawn out, knowing, well, my intent was to come in and draw forms into them later. I just never came back to them. But I did find it interesting that I was already thinking about exercises similar to this. And I do that a lot, where I will say, oh, I need to add this to my creative practice. And I'll start it, but not necessarily finish. But now that I found these, it gives me a reason to come back and revisit that exercise and see if it takes me someplace interesting. Now I want to soften the shapes of these skull eyes. They feel a little bit too menacing. And I want this to actually look like something that's more of a curious creature. Maybe shy and frightened instead of stalking someone. But yeah, Byron, that idea of just making random marks with the brush or splotches with markers, I think that that's true, that you could probably do that with any particular tool or medium, where you just start with randomness and pull forms out of it. And now that I'm doing this, I feel like it's something that I probably should work back into my creative practice more often. Ooh, that brush is way too big. Not so much a hat as crazy troll hair. Peeking over a rock. I'm just sort of framing the face here. And this is another one where, as I look at it, I feel like it would benefit from tone as opposed to hard lines. Just going to come in there and get these areas up. This whole region in here. Like his hair is so big that it's casting a shadow over the entire face. And now that I've done that, I'm actually thinking to myself, I liked what I was doing where I was coming in and doing the hatching work. Maybe that does work better for some of these. And that's actually another thing I hadn't even thought about in terms of these imaginative form experiments, is just using them to play with different rendering approaches. To decide, how do I want to make this feel like hair as opposed to stone? Now, mind you, the marks I'm making are more about form. They're not, I definitely don't feel like these are describing strands of hair. If I were intentionally trying to describe hair, I would probably render this completely differently. I would just try to find the areas where the hair is turning, like right along these edges of light here. Get that sense of it transitioning from the light to the shadow, and put in detail, like, little strands there, and then have the rest go into flat tone. Because otherwise, if you're trying to draw every single strand of hair, it gets real messy real quick. And instead of getting detail, you get clutter. So something that requires a certain amount of control and decision making, as opposed to just saying, oh, well, let's see where it happens. Now with hair, you kind of have to decide, because hair goes in a lot of different directions and can become real abstract and complex. And it's like, it's up to you as the artist to tame it. All right, I'm going to switch to one more photo real quick and do one more little sketch. And then we're going to call it a day, because this hour just shot right by. When I do stuff like this, when I grab photos for reference, for doing little art exercises, I tell myself that, I grab enough photos that I'm not going to run out during the session. I mean, I really easily could have just spent the entire session on that one single photo that I pulled in the beginning. How about this? Oh, well, this is easy, because literally I opened it and saw a giant face. This time I'm not going to sketch it out. I'm not going to draw it on the photo for you and circle what I'm looking at. I'm just going to start drawing it and let you guys see if you see where I'm getting this from. What's weird is this face I'm drawing actually reminds me of the nose reminds me of a Rembrandt self-portrait. The nose kind of like sort of rounder shape. I'm curious if anybody sees this yet. If you're looking at that, you see what it is that where I'm pulling this face from. And because this whole image is very high key, it's very light, I'm really feeling like I don't want to come in there with any hard lines at all in terms of like describing the form. And I want to just do all this with some tone. Marker-esque tone. Let's see what happens if I drop the opacity and go up to a large brush and just sort of block some of these areas in, even lower opacity. Give me some place where I can build up to. Because this whole thing is super, super light. Really feels light and puffy here. Come in, bring this opacity down a little bit more. In fact, let me erase some of these lines. So I see all this little detail, but it's a lot more subtle. You know, this is an area now where coming in with a softer brush would actually make sense. In fact, let me just use a smudge tool and smear some of this around because it's feeling a little too hard-edged. I'm going to soften this a bit. Because this form, this figure feels watery. Whoop, That's too much right there. All right. I want to put a couple of finishing touches on this. And then we're going to wrap it up. And like I said before, for anybody who came in late, we're going to be skipping live streams for the next 2 weeks. Be spending some time with the family, a little bit of downtime. But hey, go back, watch some of those old videos. Feel free to leave comments on those. I'll be checking the comments. I think that there's some old videos that are worth watching. And for the Patreon subscribers, I will be doing art book study group. But I think this week we're going to move it to Thursday instead of Wednesday. I'll put the details in a post in a day or two, maybe on Tuesday. But yeah, so no live streams for the next 2 weeks, and then I'll be back to business as usual. Don't freak out. I haven't dropped off or disappeared. Just taking a little downtime. We all deserve a little downtime every once in a while. But I will miss you guys. So yeah, that's it. Little face here. The clouds. It's the most lightest and airy of all the ones I drew here. I'm just coming in there and putting in a little counter edge to some of the softness. Yeah, coming in here and drawing lines and hitting them with the smudge tool feels a lot like watercolor. Like I'm just adding some water and just dragging stuff around through these forms. Yeah, so interesting exercise. I think it's one of those where it's not necessarily, oh, I've done this now and it's unlocked some sort of creative secret for me. I think it's more of something to do every once in a while and see if it unlocks stuff in your brain. You know, we're so focused on either finishing, or at least for me, I'm so focused on either finishing a particular creative project or learning a specific skill that I don't necessarily take the time to play creatively as much as I think all of us should. I think that there's a lot of learning that can happen, and a lot of creative growth that can happen by simply taking our tools and using them in different ways and just saying, let's see what happens if. What if? All right, guys. So we will call it here. And as I said, if you would like to participate in a art book study group, it is a 2.5, 3 hour long live stream that I do twice a month for Patreon subscribers, where we do deep dives into some of the best art books around. We've been doing a long-running series on Walt Reed's The Figure. We're probably more than 2/3 of the way through that book now, so there's a ton of videos you can watch, of us working our way through the entire book. You also get access to an online archive where you can read my comic books digitally, and access to a Patreon exclusive Discord server where we share works in progress, feedback, critiques, encouragement, general art shop talk, share our tools, our processes with each other. So head on over to patreon.com/Jeremy. That's patreon.com/GERIMI. $2 a month gets you in the door. There's higher tiers for higher rewards, but that's the basic entry. So head on over. You can try it. Check it out for a month. If you don't like it, no big deal. But come on over. Take a look. See what we got going on over there. Patreon.com/GERIMI. If you'd like to get a free digital sketchbook, blog posts about what I'm reading, what I'm watching, what's inspiring me creatively, work in progress, and many gifts delivered right to your inbox, sign up for my free monthly newsletter at newsletter.jeremy.net. And if you would like to purchase physical copies of my comic books, or if you read digitally on Kindle, you can go to amazon.jeremy.net. You can pick up books like my first graphic novel, Eye of the Gods. It's a standalone psychological thriller about a man cursed with visions he cannot control. Or you can pick up my most recent project, Morning Star. It is Lucifer's Fall from Heaven, told as a Western. It's an 8-issue series. Volume 1 contains issues 1 through 4. Volume 2 contains the conclusion, issues 5 through 8. Both have extensive back matter. There's script excerpts, character designs, thumbnails, page layouts, photo reference, and more. I'll show you how I put the entire book together. If you'd like to see what's inside before you pick it up, head on over to my YouTube channel homepage and scroll down. There's a book flip through video for each of those books. You can see what's inside. There should be links to that in the description for the video. If you're watching on Twitch, there will be links in the About tab. All right, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, for stopping by. For the new people that checked out the video, thank you for stopping by. Please subscribe to the channel. Hit that like button. Hit that share button. If there's anybody you think would like these, please share it with them. I see Limbo in the chat. Limbo says, "I finally see you live." Well, I'm glad you made it. I don't know if you heard, I'm going to be off for the next 2 weeks, but then following that, I'm going to be back on my regular schedule. Hopefully I'll catch you again. Please feel, you know what? Whenever you see one of my videos on my, if you hit the notification button on a live stream, and it'll send you an alert when I go live. So that way, you'll know, you can see it, and hopefully I'll catch you live some other times. If you ever have any questions or want to talk about art while I'm live streaming, I love hanging out with you guys and talking. So hopefully I'll see you again soon. All right, guys. Thanks so much for everybody stopping by. That's it for now. Go be creative.